Hey, church, it is January 10th, 2022. Pastor Vance here with you with the devotional today. And today, our scripture readings, if you're reading along in a Bible reading plan with us, we read from the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 to 12, Acts chapter 6, Psalm chapter 10, Genesis chapter 25 and 26. If you have that Bible reading plan, there's a link below, or contact us and we can get it to you. As always, leave questions in the comment section. As we'll take some time at some point to answer the questions that we have, or you can message them to us if you're seeing this somewhere. And they don't have to be about our readings; they can be about anything. And we hope that you're joining us, even if you aren't in this Bible reading plan, for just a little devotional thought. And today, Matthew chapter 5, we read through what we call the Beatitudes. This is the beginning of what we know is the Sermon on the Mount. And I had a meeting with some of the fellow clergy and church leaders in our school district today, and we talked about this a little bit. And imagine for a second, first of all, that over the last 2 years, things have been hard. And for lots of reasons, not just because of the pandemic, because of the many effects, or things that happened with the election, things that have happened with our economy, things that have happened with COVID. And we've all experienced some life changes and some difficulties because of that. And as I was reading these Beatitudes today, it kind of struck me that all the things that Jesus says are blessed. Every one of them, he lists somebody who's blessed. They all tend to be negative, not things that are positive. They're not things that we ask for. And as I thought about it, we look back over the last 2 years, we see how we constantly long for something different. We constantly say, I hope we get back to normal. I hope things get better. I hope this goes away. And whatever your opinions about what's going to happen about that, whatever your beliefs are about what's going to happen with all of that, there's a reality that we've all been through these hardships. And the hardships sometimes are the very place where God delivers his promises. It's not, we don't see God promising to give us things when life is good, although he's still there and gives us what we need when life is good. It is often in the adversity and in the hardship that we find what God has for us. So I want you to consider some of the things that Jesus says are blessed in this passage. Blessed are the poor in spirit, and who find a need for him. Perhaps over the last 2 years, we've been blessed because we've recognized our need for God in the midst of the struggles that everybody's gone through. Blessed are those who mourn. Here's a reality I want you all to consider. Everybody's lost something the last 2 years, some more than others. We're all grieving right now, and grief is a very finicky thing. Grief looks different for a lot of people. And as you are dealing with people, you may be dealing with somebody who's lost a lot. And as you think about how you treat them, how you would treat somebody who you knew they just lost a spouse or a child or someone very close to them, you would talk to them differently. Well, imagine that we grieve and we mourn when we things like lose our jobs or just lose some of the things that we've wanted in life. And so there's a lot of people grieving and mourning right now. God promises comfort. If we thought of each other right now as grieving, as mourning our losses, and continuing to have more and more losses, we might treat one another in a little different fashion. To those who are humble. And we've got a lot of prideful people who've got it all figured out the last couple of years, don't we? Not a lot of humility. To those who hunger and thirst for justice. We've had to cry out in our culture many times for there to be justice. We see, I believe, that we as Christians should hunger for that. We should thirst for that. We find satisfaction in that in God, not in our government and not in politics and not in each other, in Jesus Christ. To those who are merciful. Imagine right now if every exchange, every conversation, every social media post, everybody that heard it or read it would meet it with mercy instead of judgment, instead of disagreement, instead of argument. Imagine how much different the last few years would have looked. We need more mercy, passion, kindness for each other right now. Blessed are those whose hearts are pure. That's a hard one. That we have our hearts been pure over the last 2 years? We looked for purity early on from germs, right? Hand sanitizer. How about some heart sanitizer? That's a terrible teacher pun. But think about that. What do you do to make sure your heart's pure, your heart's clean, your heart's free from all of the things that can make it sick, that can keep it from being focused on God? Blessed are those who work for peace. We need peace in restoration and wholeness in relationships right now. There's so many that have been shattered and torn apart because of what's happened. Blessed are those persecuted for doing right. Now, there's a lot of people through this who feel like they're persecuted, and probably some rightfully so. A lot of people feel like they've been hurt, they've been harmed, they've been maligned, they've been criticized, and they probably have. The thing is, Jesus goes on to say that you should be happy and glad about it. And he's talking about those who've been persecuted following him. But here, we still have to find the goodness, and we still have to find reasons for joy and thanksgiving, even in something difficult, even in something hard, even when people are after us or lying about us or persecuting us or saying we're wrong. It's hard to keep that right perspective. I want to encourage you as we read this, see that God's blessings come from when our focus is on what he has for us, when our focus is on our hearts, when our focus is on him, and not when our focus is on the things and the problems and the struggles of this world. He will help us overcome all those things. Right now, instead of thinking about what you've lost, what you don't have, how hard the last 2 years have been, I want you to think back about how the difficulties and how the struggles and how what you've been through have allowed you to see the goodness of God, and where God has moved and where God has worked, and where maybe God has shown you the blessings that he said that he was going to show you in those hard times. I pray that you see those in him. I pray that you come to find those if you haven't seen them yet in your life.